you can't be successful as a franchise owner or a business person unless you can master sales.
I love nothing more than watching people grow. I know something that you weren't fond of or considered yourself necessarily good at was sales. Is that accurate?
I was deathly afraid of sales. You know, I'm an Eastern European immigrant. I came here on a boat, the whole 9 yards. And sales is a dirty word in Eastern Europe. Like in where I came from, the only people who had sales jobs were people who couldn't get another job. If you could get a job, you were a lawyer or an accountant or a doctor. You weren't a salesperson. So that was my view of sales. Combine that with I was deathly afraid to speak to another human being. So neither of those things are good combined together. But it's something I had to learn. And I think I'm pretty good at sales now, but you can't be successful as a franchise owner or a business person unless you can master sales. You don't have to be the top salesperson necessarily in your company, but man, you got to be right up there. And especially at the beginning, the smaller you are, you've got to carry that burden. But it's something you can learn. Everybody listening to this can be a great salesperson. I never buy that crap where people say, oh, I wish I was like you. I wish I was born to sell. And I'm like, that is absolute BS. When I was 20, I couldn't speak to one other human being. So it's a skill. It's a muscle that you've got to develop. It just comes down to how important it is to you and how committed you are. And if you're committed to growing a business, you've got to be committed to being good at sales.
Well, it's funny because I think the key word there that I'm realizing, commitment. Many of our franchise partners would say they hate sales or they're not good at it, similar to how you might have felt. So if I think back to myself when I was in the Cub Scouts, yes, I was, and I hated sales, but there was a contest that I really wanted to win, and it was whoever sold the most address labels, something no one would ever sell anymore. But I went door to door to door. I monitored my numbers and I said, I'm going to get out of my comfort zone and I'm going to win this thing. And there I was, 9 years old or something, and I won because I just practiced every single door. And it's interesting how people hate sales, but it just takes knock after knock after knock or phone call, you get better.
You know, Brian, when I started out, I used to hate making cold calls. That's how old I am. People used to cold call on the phone.
Yeah.
And I remember being miserable making these cold calls, and my boss, who was a great salesman, came along and said, what's wrong? He said, oh, I hate making cold calls. He said, why? He said, oh, you know, people aren't nice to me and they reject me or they turn me down or whatever my excuse was. And he said to me, oh, do you like being poor better? Do you like not taking care of your family more? And he said, you don't have to be good at this skill, but if you're not good at it, you can't get to these other goals. And I think it's all perspective. To your point, there was a larger goal that you have. Sales is not the be all and end all. Sales is part of the process of growth. And sales is not about conning somebody. Sales is about finding what your customers need and providing that value. It's not a dirty word at all. And I think people just look at it the wrong way.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. One of our speakers coming up is Jack Daly, the professional sales coach. And he says the shortest course in sales is ask questions and listen. When you're asking someone questions and they're talking about their own needs and you're paying attention, sales is easy. It's not an ugly word.
I think the other thing, Brian, too, that I've had to learn over time is the most powerful voice in the world is the voice inside our head, especially when it came to sales. I've learned it's how you talk to yourself that makes a big difference. Because I used to be like you just said, oh, I hate sales. I'll do it. I've stopped using anything you want to be great in life, stop putting it down. Anything you want to be better at, stop putting it down. Stop putting yourself down. I always find when people say, well, you know, I'm really going to grow unless something bad happens. Don't do that. That voice in your head is killing your growth.